How has prison, how have these 7 years changed you? You gave us small glimpses about, you got so used to sleeping on the floor that coming back out and sleeping on a bed again is a peculiar feeling. But that is perhaps every prisoner who's reasonably well off who goes in and comes out. But fundamentally, how has it altered you, if it has? Are you the same person you were when you went in? Just
Like I said, when I first went into Baikula, it was a shock to my system. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of time on this because there's so much to talk about. But anyway, I'll make it as brief as possible. So in the first 15 days, I think 20 days after my arrest, I lost my mom. And a few months later, I lost my father. And I'm not talking about so much the creature comforts. Let's start off with even the creature comforts. Why not? Of course, you know, coming from, having a bed to sleep on and sleeping on the floor, just the basic this thing, it kind of hits you that where am I? What's happened? But what I realized, over a period of time, before that, let me talk about the emotional side of it. So after I went into prison, of course, I was not allowed to watch any of the news and also the newspaper cuttings because, I think the prison authorities were trying to be, mindful about the fact that I shouldn't kind of get emotionally so stressed out that I kind of end up doing something silly. Yeah, so that was one part of it. But what I used to really wait for, the first couple of months, everybody's mulakats, we used to have this family mulakat once a week. So everybody used to come for everybody's families would show up. So I'd obviously wait for my name every day. And Vidhi had left by then. And my lawyers would come very regularly. And then for some reason or the other, nobody came. And I was obviously waiting for Peter to come, right? So, I mean, he was the only family that I had here. So, and then, of course, there was no sign of Peter. And what I realized, that most of the women who go into prison for the same crime, if it's a woman, 90% of the women are abandoned by their families, by their in-laws, by their own families, by their parents, by their brothers, sisters. Whereas, Baikula has a gents section also. So 90% of the mulakats actually are for gents. And for the same crime, the family, friends, everybody supportive, of the male member of the family, if you're a co-accused. So, in fact, initially when I went in there, I had no checkbook, I had no money, I had no clothes, and there was nobody who actually came to give me any of it till, my lawyers started kind of saying, hey, listen, you need to kind of move court to get your checkbooks. You need to kind of pull yourself together to get your own life sorted out. You just don't worry about who's there, who's not there. So being abandoned in prison, for women, it's I think it's one of the saddest, I would say, situations to be in. And it's not just, it didn't just happen to me. Like I've said, it's 90% of the women. That's one. The second thing I realized is that not everybody who goes to prison is guilty. I think 75% to that extent. And I'm not saying this because, people come and say that they're innocent. I have seen in front of my eyes people who have been in prison for 8 years, 6 years, 10 years. They have been acquitted at the end of the day after spending all those years. I've seen people, who've been there, whose actual, the punishment is for 5 years and they've spent 8 years. So it's because of the lack of, family support. And now, of course, there's a stronger legal aid system there, post the pandemic, I must admit. But, women just go there and get stuck. That's the second thing. And I believe, this is again my view, that unlike in when it's a male accused, the family does everything to clear out the media perception if it's a media case. At least, however angry you are, whatever it is, at least to the outside world, they put up a, united front. But in case of women, it doesn't happen. Whether it's a small crime or a big crime, reason the gravity of the crime is irrelevant. So I think that is another thing I've noticed.
I remember reading an Indian Express article about you. You've
Yeah,
mentioned that you waited for Peter Mukerjea to come and meet you when he was not yet in custody and he never came.
yeah,
And you make
yeah,
the larger point about women inside prison being
yeah.
abandoned. And this article actually was after Peter was also arrested, Indrani, and it spoke about how people would come and meet Peter, but nobody would come and meet you.
Yes,
Do you
yes.
remember that phase
I
as
was
well?
just coming to that. I was just coming to that. And it's just not, it would go to the extent of, nobody, of course, because a lot of people were told not to speak to me. That's a different, that I'll come later. I know I shouldn't be sounding, like I said, I've forgiven and it's all, because people have actually discreetly, even, it's very, very strange. People have discreetly, a lot of people have communicated with me in prison, and a lot of people from quarters that I had not expected, had extended their support to me. So some of the people who had actually written to me or communicated with me, some through my lawyers, had said they've been actually told, not to communicate with me, and not by legal advisors. So and there were situations where I'd been caught, and see, for whatever it is, I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't hold grudges, and it's just all in the past, and I choose to move on. And but there have been times I was actually sitting in court, and if my lawyers were busy, I'd get hungry, and there'd be food for Peter. Nobody even offered me a biscuit. I mean, that's you're talking about being, you forget about the crime for a minute. I've been his wife, and I've been a part of that family for years, for 16 years. So that's like, it's not a small amount of time.